Let's take a look at conditional and unconditional logistic regression. So these are the analysis options for a matched design. We're going to focus here on conditional and unconditional logistic regression. Unconditional logistic regression is what you always hear about. This is the regular logistic regression. So if nobody says anything, that is, and they just talk about logistic regression, what they mean is unconditional logistic regression. Now you can use unconditional logistic regression for a match design by adjusting for the matching factor. You adjust for sex, for example. This is okay when there are few strata. For example, like for sex, you would have only two strata, male and female. When you're doing a very finely stratified or match design, like a one-on-one, for example, you have 100 twins, then that would not work very well. Because if you try and enter that variable into your model, you're going to create many different variables in order to adjust for that. So in that case, you would use a conditional logistic regression. And the estimate should be similar to conditional, but in general, it will be more precise. But you have to be careful when you decide to use unconditional logistic regression. The other option is conditional logistic regression. Here, what we can say that we are conditioning on the matching factor, or you can also say stratifying. So here, when you have a very large number of strata, for example, 50 pairs, 100 pairs, 1,000 pairs, then you will use the strata statement in SAS on the proc logistic. You will get unbiased estimate. Well, that is if there are no other variables that you need to be worrying about. But you will get a little bit less precise estimates than unconditional logistic regression. In a matched analysis, we know that we can, for example, after matching on sex, we can do a Cochrane-Mato-Hansel test where we include the stratification variable as a stratum. In this case, would be sex, and we need to put it here at the beginning, and then we have the exposure and the outcome of interest. A matched analysis is a stratified analysis, so once we stratify by sex, we are actually accounting for the matching matched analysis. But the other two options would be conditional and unconditional logistic regression. This is especially when we have additional variables such as continuous variables, other variables that we want to include besides sex. So here's an example on how you could analyze a study that was matched on sex, frequency matched. So you have only two strata. So you have an option of doing conditional or unconditional logistic regression. In unconditional logistic regression, you can simply adjust for sex. So what you do, you include sex into your model. So you're studying the association between the outcome and the exposure, and then you add sex. Sex can be added before or after the exposure on the right side of the equal sign. What it means is that you are adjusting for sex. In a conditional logistic regression, you will need to add the strata statement so that you can condition on sex. In this case, probably you will get similar results because you have only two strata, and so it's okay to put this variable either way. If you had a lot of strata, not just two strata like male or female, but if you had a lot of strata, then you would want to use conditional logistic regression. If you had another variable that you matched on, that it is maybe has 2 or 3 strata, then you can use proc logistic with the unconditional. So you could use the unconditional logistic regression. So here's an example of conditional logistic regression. Here we're asking couples, husband and wife, to answer yes or no, whether they agree or not on some particular question. So the pair is the family. So we enter the pair into the strata statement like this. Because we only have 15 pairs, then we are also running, we can run some exact analysis. And you can see that the pair is not entered into the model. Answer is the outcome, and couple is the exposure, whether you're husband or wife. So how do you choose between conditional and unconditional logistic regression? If you have few strata, such as in a frequency match case control study with maybe 2 or 3 strata, then you can consider using the unconditional logistic regression. I would recommend that you always check and run both before you decide on using the unconditional logistic regression to make sure that your estimate is not too different from the conditional logistic regression. If you have lots of strata, then you probably need to use the conditional logistic regression, because otherwise you're going to enter all of these pairs into the model and it become very, very crowded. So for example, if you're comparing right and left foot and you have 40 pairs of feet, that's a lot of variables to put into the model. So you would want to use conditional logistic regression. What you don't want to do is that you just simply match in your design and forget about it in the analysis. So you will need, once you match, you will need to either stratify in a conditional logistic regression or adjust for that factor in the unconditional logistic regression. And also remember that if it's something you're interested in, for example, if sex or age were of interest, you don't want to match on them, because once you match on a variable, you can never study it again. So you don't want to be discussing or interpreting sex if you matched on sex.